9.
Even though I had read the original novel, I wasn't familiar with an Alexander Windsor. The original text described him in just a few words. It simply mentioned that when the male protagonist Carter was a child, his parents brought back a baby after a long business trip abroad and named him Alexander. However, like Carter, he had poor health since childhood and was sent abroad for recuperation. That's all. Well, that's all. Even later in the story, when the heroine had been tortured enough, in the happy ending scene, there was no complete description of Alexander. Why did the plot change this time? Was it the butterfly effect caused by my arrival? Miss Grace, I know you still have doubts. But as long as you are willing to cooperate, I can ensure Carter won't find you. I looked up at him. The young man in the wheelchair looked frail, which softened the edges of his face and made his serious features seem gentle and dignified. Yet, what he said made people believe him for no reason. Cooperate? What cooperation? Is it difficult? Alexander started to cough just as he was about to speak, his sickly pale face gaining some color. He quickly turned his head away. After stabilizing his breathing, he turned back and continued, "It's to fulfill the wish of an old friend of mine. It might be difficult for others, but for you, Miss Grace, it might be as easy as pie. But there's nothing I can do to help you." "You can do it, Miss Grace." Alexander smiled. His peach blossom eyes slightly narrowed, sparkling as if filled with dazzling stars, handsome and gentle, just like a gentle and elegant gentleman from a bygone era. "Only you can make him wish he were dead."
10.
Even after I returned from my trip abroad, I still didn't understand the direction of the whole story. Alexander Vanderbilt, who was almost forgotten by everyone and was recuperating abroad, suddenly found me and said he could help me avoid Carter. But the condition was that I had to make Carter suffer a fate worse than death. When I thought of the way Alexander said, "Wish he were dead," with a smile, I couldn't help but shudder, feeling like I was facing a hissing, venomous snake. So, here's the question. Since I don't want to see Carter, how can I make him suffer a fate worse than death? It's a headache. It seemed Alexander was indeed capable. Even though I still lived in the original villa, I hadn't seen Carter for at least half a month. I received a message from Alexander saying my travel itinerary had been faked and Carter had followed the false lead to find me. Carter's absence made me let my guard down. However, I forgot about other important characters in the novel. I learned this lesson with Theodore. I thought I had severed ties with one character, but I always forgot there were others. I was drinking bubble tea and watching TV in a trendy dessert cafe when I didn't notice my other glass of ice water was missing. It wasn't until a shadow beside me knelt down on the ground with a thud that I stood up in shock. Only then did I realize my missing glass of ice water had been splashed all over a delicate and pitiful-looking girl, and the empty plastic cup rolled pathetically on the ground. This popular online dessert shop was crowded, and the sound of kneeling attracted many people to turn around at once. The girl knelt helplessly on the ground, her hair wet from the ice water. I was so young and was knelt too. I was so scared I immediately went around to her side thinking, "Oh my God, I'm going to die early because someone knelt to me." However, this girl seemed to want to kill me. She continued kneeling toward me, sobbing. The girl kneeling on the ground clutched her hospital gown, took a deep breath, wiped her tears, and looked up at me. Jade-like features lonely, tears dry, a branch of pear blossoms wet with spring rain. My head buzzed. Seeing her appearance, I suddenly thought of this Chinese poem. Though it felt oddly translated, the intent was her beauty, She seemed to want to cry, but couldn't, tear tracks still wet on her palm-sized face. Her deer-like eyes were filled with water, as if they would overflow the next second, letting rain hit the pear blossoms. A beauty shedding tears, looking so pitiful, it was the epitome of that. My heart was like, oh, little beauty, so pretty, hee hee hee. However, the next second, as soon as I heard what she said, I couldn't feel any sympathy for her anymore. The little beauty bit her pearly white teeth into her lips, and tears started flowing as soon as she opened her mouth. Claire, I understand you don't want to save me, but please, don't take Carter away, okay? He's all I have.